Hey, business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta Sky Miles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 110,000 bonus miles for a limited time through July 16th. The Delta Sky Miles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends 7/16/25.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
It's summer. Time to enjoy long days, lazy nights, and zero cooking. Because Uber Eats has deals all summer long. So, when hunger strikes, don't sweat it. Delicious deals are just a tap away on Uber Eats. Enjoy all your favorite food delivered straight to you. Get Burger King, Subway, Popeyes, and hundreds more local favorites and savor every last bite. Now that sounds like a good summer. Order now on Uber Eats. Terms apply. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Robertson, the first time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robertson do. And still Robertson, getting his shot in, and a goal! Robertson!
Coming up on the show this week, we talk the ins, the outs, take another quiz, and Mollo relives his youth playing with the Garibaldi Girls. All that and more is coming up on the Tricky Talks podcast. So Mollo is here as always. Serious question, are you fit and well?
Absolutely not. I ache from top to toe. I've got no skin left on my knees. I feel like I've broken a rib, but I think it's just a muscular injury. And at work today, every time I had to go upstairs, I took the lift, even if it was only one floor. Apart from that, absolutely fine.
Yeah, more on that later, of course. I mentioned your reference to playing with the Garibaldi Girls. We'll talk about that towards the end of the show. And we're delighted to be joined this week by a newcomer to the show, Kate, who is part of the aforementioned Garibaldi Girls. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. Chelsea will be back, of course, but it's her birthday this week, so she's taking a break. And happy birthday, Chelsea.
Yeah, happy birthday.
So before we crack on with the show, I do want to mention Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva. This is the first time we've had a chance to talk about it since those tragic events where they both lost their lives. Obviously, we offer our condolences to family and friends and everybody who knew them, but I think it's important that we do pay respects to those guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, on with the show. We're going to start with the ins. It was confirmed recently that Igor Jesus has finally signed and put a pen to paper on a 4-year contract. Start with you, Mollo. Obviously, you've had time to digest that news. What will he bring to the team and to the club, that particular signing?
Some more competition for our fantastic 20-goal striker, Chris Wood, let's not forget. My understanding is he can play anywhere across the front line and also the 10 role, so he gives us flexibility in terms of if we have injuries or suspensions. Really excited to see him play actually in the Premier League and in competitive football. He looked good in the Club World Cup, but you know my views on that in terms of the European teams weren't really fully committed at times. But that said, it can only be a good thing, especially at that price. It's a relatively, and we never thought I'd hear us saying this about Forest, relatively low-risk signing.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about he performed at the Club World Cup and obviously scored that goal against PSG, which certainly put his name on a lot of people's lips. So he's got a bit of a reputation already, Kate, hasn't he, coming from Botafogo. In terms of his contribution to the team, where do you see him fitting into that lineup? Do you think he's got a capability of starting from day one, or do you think that typically we cite these players and they take time to bed in and adjust to the Premier League? Do you see him fitting in straight away or contributing a bit further into the season?
So from what I know about him, which is just what I've looked up since, we've started to be linked with him, he scored a lot of goals in Dubai. And that was when people really sort of started to sit up and take notice of him. But obviously playing in Dubai is going to be very, very different to playing in the Premier League. So there is an element of the unprovenness of him being his first time out in the Premier League. I watched a little bit of them playing Milan, I think it was. So I didn't see the big PSG goal live, but what I noticed from that was that he was coming forward, he was being creative, he was in there, but not actually getting the ball in the back of the net, which obviously made me think he'll fit in perfectly at Forest because we're great at that already. But equally, I have this weird faith in the powers that be at Forest at the moment that I don't think I've had, I wouldn't say ever, certainly not for a very, very long time. And I think if they've scouted him and they think he's worth a go, then I expect him to be worth a go, and I expect to be talking about him all season, hopefully in a very positive light.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I like about him is his heading ability. He's got tremendous knack of scoring goals with his head for not such a big guy either. So you can see him kind of almost fulfilling that Chris Wood goal in terms of being able to get on the end of crosses from the wings, but also I think he offers that ability of a little bit of pace that perhaps Chris Wood doesn't offer. And I do wonder whether they'll look to play him not necessarily as an out-and-out striker, but there is likely to be a space now in the three that sit behind Chris Wood, and I do wonder, which we'll come on to later, and I do wonder if he's going to be able to slot into that role, Kate.
Yeah, I mean, somebody needs to, don't they now, it would appear. And I think, yeah, potentially. I mean, he's young, which is good, and hopefully that will help make him more adaptable. So yeah, I guess that's what we hope, isn't it? Although I do kind of want an out-and-out striker, I think we will look to sign another winger. We already have some other players in the squad that could step up to that role if they're good enough. So actually, as much as I appreciate what you're saying, what I want is to see him banging in some goals.
Yeah, just turning the page slightly on Jesus, do you think, Mollo, that the club will be looking to sign another striker? Obviously, we've got a 1 year on the bench who's coming off the back of that horrendous injury, so we don't yet know whether he's going to be fit for the new season. I know the players have only just returned. So do you think the club will be looking to consolidate that Jesus signing with another striker?
I don't think they'll be looking for a first-team striker now. I think they may come across a really young striker, 19, 20-year-old, one for the future that comes in, part of the squad, maybe goes out on loan or maybe is involved in from the bench or whatever. I think the thing about Jesus is, one thing I probably should have said, yes, he can play across the front line, but one thing that was very, very evident from what I've seen of him and the little I've seen of him, he's very, very good with his back to goal, isn't he? Holding up the ball. He doesn't matter how big or strong the defender is, he was very, very good at that. Something Chris Wood's also very good at. I think it can only be a good thing to have more competition. Nobody is dislodging Chris Wood if he plays like he did last season, and who's to say he won't if he's fully fit, because at his age, it's about staying fit. Pace was never part of his game, as you've alluded to. If he's playing and he's fit and he's on the pitch, he's going to score goals. He scored 20 goals from relatively few chances in comparison to others. For me, Jesus may not come straight into the side because Chris Wood's doing his job and fit, but at his age and on a 4-year contract, there is no doubt whatsoever he is the natural successor for that role because of the skill set he's got. He is Chris Wood with a yard of pace, isn't he? He's got everything Chris Wood's got, but a bit more pace. However, saying that, he hasn't got Chris Wood's goals record, which has always been a decent record. Time will tell. Very exciting. Nice problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. He's not got Chris Wood's goal-scoring record, nor has he got that Premier League experience yet, but he's Brazil's number 9. So he must have some pedigree, Kate, and hopefully translate some of those. That certainly he scored on his debut. I know he's had limited playing time for Brazil, but we know he scored on his debut, and hopefully those skills will translate to the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why we've got him, isn't it? That's why he's caught our eye. That's why we've brought him in. And, you know, if anyone can get that out of him, then it's Nuno, isn't it? So yeah, let's go. Let's see.
Right, one other signing the club have made, it's not so much of a signing, but a re-signing, is that Ola Aina has put pen to paper on another contract until 2028, which I know all Forest fans are extremely delighted about. In fact, we can hear from Ola Aina right now on his new contract.
Happy to obviously get everything sorted and just ready for the new season. It's going to be an exciting one. So yeah, I'm buzzing. It's a fantastic club, obviously, the staff, the city, and just everything about it really is just, it's a bit of me. So it was a no-brainer to obviously continue the journey.
So you can see from that clip how much he wants to be at the club. Another important signing, Mollo, one that we're extremely happy about.
Oh, absolutely buzzing, because he's the yin to the left-back's yang, isn't he? That it's about combinations and not necessarily in the same spot. It takes me back to those days where we had, you know, Stuart Pearce rampaging down the left and dominating a game, but you had Brian Laws at right-back doing his job superbly. And when Gary Charles came in, it never quite was the same, even though on paper he was a more talented individual than Lawsy. I just think with the two fullbacks signing their contracts is a very, very important statement, because there's no two ways about it. He's a 30-40 million pound player, because obviously fullbacks are a little bit cheaper. He's got absolutely everything. I think he's been a fairly late developer as well in terms of putting it all together, because there's nothing he hasn't got. Even in his first season, we could see it. There were those moments he might switch off or whatever it is, but he just seems to be right in his groove. And we all know what Ola Aina means to Forest fans. It's what he does on the pitch is huge. What he does is just such a larger-than-life character. Absolutely brilliant news. Just a shame, which we'll come to later, I'm sure, his other mate hadn't signed, but never mind.
Yeah, I should say that clip was courtesy of Forest TV. You can find that on their YouTube channel and hear that interview in full. But Kate, he certainly solidifies that back four now for the forthcoming season, doesn't he? With Williams on one side, Aina on the other, with Murillo and Milenkovic in the centre. They're now solidified as the first choice defensive line for the foreseeable future, aren't they? For a good few years now, you'd have thought.
Yeah, and, you know, how amazing is that? Just say those names again, Simon. Say those names again. That's our defence. I love it.
Williams, Aina, Milenkovic and Murillo.
Oh, how good is that? It's like we're playing FPL, but it's our club. Absolutely love it. And, you know, I looked at his interview, and the bit that I really liked was where he said, it's a bit of me. This club, it's a bit of me. And is that not how we all feel about Ola Aina? Honestly, what a character. And just so entertaining to watch in all ways, on the pitch, off the pitch. But again, absolute faith, you know, like he's there, he's got this. We know that, you know, that we are solid at the back, that we can build from the back. And yeah, to have him signed for 3 years as well, I think is really good. It is a commitment. It is exactly what we needed with, other departures, in progress and some uncertainty. Having Ola Aina, thank you very much. We'll take that.
I know one particular issue you do have with Ola Aina, Kate, is the state of his shorts. In that they do seem to be falling down every game, don't they? And I don't know.
Calling that an issue? I don't know that I'm calling that an issue.
No, maybe an issue is the wrong sort of word, but yeah, it does seem a bit strange, doesn't it? Where his shorts appear to be falling down every game.
It's entertaining, though, isn't it? Like, it's going to happen one of these days. They're going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. But on all serious note, in terms of that signing, for me, it says that they want to take care of their own. We've seen it with Williams and now Aina. Hopefully, Callum Hudson-Odoi is next. Hopefully, then, looking longer term, Morgan Gibbs-White will put pen to paper on a new long-term contract because he's only got a couple of years left. But I really like the fact that they're taking care of their own, and what that says to me as well, that perhaps not only appeal to any future signings who may want to stay at the club long term, but also the young up-and-coming players who are currently at the club, knowing that if they break into the first team and perform, they're going to be rewarded with long-term deals. And that I think is just as an important factor, Mollo, in terms of how you should view this particular signing.
100%. I think it still baffles me when I think back. We got him on a free transfer. It's insane. It was almost a year-to-year contract at one point, wasn't it, with an option? It does send a message that you perform, you get offered a new contract. Because I believe Williams had another year, didn't he, still to go? But they've redone his contract. I'm so pleased because we all talk about, we've watched him grow as a player from when he signed to where he is now, haven't we? And hopefully can kick on even more. Aina is that many people that are not Forest fans stated Aina was the best right back in the league last year, didn't they? Defensively, he was solid. Attacking-wise, he was solid. You think through all the games he played before he got injured, probably 30-odd games, I can only think of one, maybe two games where he was not quite on it. Obviously, Bournemouth was just one of those days for everybody. He's a superb player, and the message it sends throughout football, not just the club, I'd argue, that Forest is serious about trying to maintain their progress going forward.
You mentioned about FPL there, Kate. Ola Aina was a strong FPL asset for 2024-2025. The Tricky Talks podcast FPL League will be coming soon. So hopefully the four of us will all join as it's open to anyone really who wants to play and pit their wits against the experts, shall we say in inverted commas.
Well, my 13-year-old absolutely bossed our league last year. So am I all right to invite him to join us, or we leave him?
No, absolutely.
My problem is I'm like the kid with no patience. I get to about November, December, I forget to change my team and change players. And I end up, by the end of the season, with about 4 players who've been injured for 2 or 3 months.
I'll tell you, when we create our league, Mollo, and we go through it, the latest standings each and every week, and if you start to lag behind because you're not updating the team, it will certainly be highlighted on the podcast. So there's an incentive for you to keep up to date, hey?
Absolutely.
I mentioned previously Callum Hudson-Odoi is potentially next to redo his contract, and I understand from reading various reports in the media that his party are currently in Greece trying to thrash out a new deal. He's only got, 1 year left currently on his deal, so he's going to be another important signing for the club, isn't it, Kate?
Absolutely, yes, especially if he's losing his partner, because we need to keep that pace, don't we? I have to say that as much as I love Callum, and I do, of the two of them, I think I would have rather have kept Elanga, if I'm 100% honest. Sorry, controversial for my first show. But Elanga's gone. We have to accept that. We have to move on. So it's all about Callum. Yeah, let's get him signed up. Let's get him committed to the team, and then let's find him a new playmate.
We're going to talk about... Sorry, go on, Molly. Go on.
I agree with much of what you said there, to be fair, but I actually think, we talk about that combinations thing again. You've got the pace, we had the pace merchant on one wing. Yeah, it's much more than that, but that was his thing. On the other wing, you had Callum Hudson-Odoi, who's not particularly quick, but he looks after the ball better than any other player in our squad. You give him the ball to his feet, he might not make something happen on that occasion, but he won't lose the ball. He'll make sure we keep the ball, as we say, keep the ball red. It will stay with a Forest player, or he'll just look after it and then give it to someone else. Whereas the more dynamic other winger would lose possession more often because of the nature of the way he puts the ball at risk, and just a slightly different type of thing, isn't it? But for his injuries, it always worries me whenever he goes down injured, Hudson-Odoi, because of his previous injuries. I think he's absolutely key. He reminds me, this is a very bold statement to make, he reminds me the way he shuffles down, you know what's coming here, don't you? Reminds me of John Robertson, the way he shuffles down the wing and just looks after the ball. It's like we lend him the ball, he lends the ball to other players, if that makes sense. When he's on song,
Yeah.
And I sat on the front row for one game last year when I was ill, and I swapped seats because I didn't want to go in A block and stand up all game. And when you're close to him, his close control is absolutely different class. Wherever it comes to him, no matter where the defender is, what the defender does, he reacts, and he'll knock it inside simple a lot of the time because that's part of his job. And he's got more goals, I think, than any other player from outside the area in the last year as well, if I've read correctly recently. So that was me making a case for CHO, but sign the contract, Callum. We love you.
Absolutely. I think he's pacey enough, is he not? I mean, you say he's not quick. I think he does all right. He can get up and down.
He's an athlete, but he's not pacey like the way he was before he did his leg. But he's added to his game in so many different ways. But if you saw him in a foot race, he'd be mid-table in our squad probably. Maybe 20, 30 metres.
Fair enough.
A fullback isn't going to be scared of his pace. What they are going to be scared of is whether he's going to go inside or out. He's got one trick. He either beats you on the inside or he beats you on the outside.
Yeah.
And that's what you say about Robbo, wasn't it?
Absolutely. So we are going to get onto the Elanga sale shortly, but it's important to note that the club have made one further appointment this week with Edu Gaspar appointed as global head of football. So he brings a wealth of football experience to the club, and he's going to oversee football operations, and that would include things like recruitment, performance, squad strategy, player development. How much of an impact do we need him to be at NFFC now, Kate, given the role that he's going to take? And he comes with a good pedigree, having been an Arsenal player and won many trophies there for many years. He's held roles with Corinthians, the Brazilian national team, and of course, more recently, Arsenal, where he's held a similar role. How much impact is he going to make in the short and long term, Kate, do you think?
I think coming in now, at this point, when we are open transfer window, when people are coming in, they're going out, we do need him to make an impact. It says that part of his role is recruitment and scouting. So, okay, let's hit the ground running and let's see what you've got and what you bring. I think, like you say, the fact that he has that overview of multivariate leagues and countries is only going to go in our favour because, he should be casting the net very, very wide and have a really good understanding. I'm going to be completely honest and say that I don't entirely understand what his role is going to be. It seems very broad, a little bit ambiguous. There's a little bit of this role and a little bit of that role in it. So also let's see what he does do, the things that he is directly responsible for, the things that he is contributing to. But ultimately, Marinakis likes him. He's brought him on board for us and his other clubs. So yeah, okay.
I mean, that's the key, I think, Kate, isn't it? Is global football operations. So you're right, he's going to be overseeing a lot of this work across all of the football clubs that Marinakis owns. So it's interesting to see how his time is going to be split. Clearly, he's not going to be able to do all of the work himself. He's going to have delegates who will report into him, and whether he'll continue with the current structure at the football club remains to be seen. But they're doing a good job in terms of recruitment, especially, and that's kind of the area that we as fans tend to spend more time thinking about and focusing on. So do you think Mollo he'll perhaps change that business model they're currently using in terms of transfers, i.e. buying young talent that they can develop and sell on for a significant profit? It's working. Do you think he will use his influence to continue with that model or perhaps change it?
I think it's going to be a sort of 2 or 3 pronged approach now, because we're at a level now where if we want to improve our team and our squad, and particularly if we do lose the player we've been speaking about, we need high quality signings that are almost ready to go. That said, the kind of Brighton model of us getting players in for 10, 12, 15 million and then double, treble, quadrupling their value is important. It says a lot about modern football that we talk about player transfers, but there's a lot of rumours flying around about our current director of football and whatnot, and whether it's around him coming in. But time will tell.
Finding a new job is stressful. But with Indeed, it doesn't have to be. Just fill out your Indeed profile with your skills, experience, and desired salary. The more you fill out, the better your matches will be. And hearing from hiring managers will be 2 times more likely. Relax. That's your Indeed profile sending opportunities your way. Indeed, the world can work better.
This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at Polestar.com.
If you went on a road trip and you didn't stop for a Big Mac or drop a crispy fry between the car seats or use your McDonald's bag as a placemat, then that wasn't a road trip. It was just a really long drive. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's.
Right, we have mentioned all of the ins. Let's time to now focus on some of the outs. And of course, the big one that looks like it's going through sooner rather than later is, of course, the transfer of Anthony Elanga to Newcastle for £55 million, depending on various reports. I've heard various fees are being bandied about, but that seems to be the figure that's there or thereabouts. We touched on it already, Kate. It's going to be a bit of a blow, isn't it, to lose Elanga, given the way he's contributed to the team over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah. I mean, I'm usually really, really positive about this stuff, and I'm sure I'll get there. But the thought of him being at Newcastle right now as we are recording this, doing his medical, does make me a little bit sad. I love him. I absolutely love him. He is exciting. He is, so talented, so quick. Some of the goals he scored have been absolute bangers, absolutely incredible. And yeah, I hope very much that we can get someone good in to replace him, because he is a big loss. There's no two ways about it. He's a big loss for our squad, and he is a massive part of what we did last season and a massive part of the success that we had. So, I mean, good luck to him. I say that, with total, honesty, good luck. I have no animosity for him for going. I understand he wants to go and play Champions League football. Newcastle, great club, good fan base. Maybe not quite as good as us, but they're up there, aren't they? So yeah, absolutely good luck to him, and thank you for everything. But yeah, I am a little bit sad to see him go.
I think I said to Mollo on the show last week that losing Elanga is acceptable given the reasons, like you say, Kate, around playing Champions League football, playing for a team that is ultimately going to be in contention again this forthcoming season. They won a trophy last year. So that I can accept, on the understanding that any funds that are reinvested in the team don't make the overall quality of the team less. If they can get a couple of really good, decent signings to offset the loss of Elanga, then fine. I'm obviously not content with the move, because you want to see Elanga stay, but it will mitigate the disappointment of losing Elanga, knowing that the funds have been reinvested in a more than adequate replacement, and we'll come on to that shortly. But talking about the fee, Mollo, I mentioned it's 55 million, which is a 40 million profit based on what we paid Man United for him. And of course, we've got to take off a 15% reduction off that 40 million. Do you think it's a good price, a good deal, or would you have held out for more potentially?
I think it's a fair price. I think the key that it seems to be coming through is Newcastle wanted, because of PSR and everything else, to pay us each year of his contract in instalments. But Forest held out and said, no, half now, half next season, which changes things, to be fair, because it gives you that spending power that PSR gets dealt with. I think it's a fair feel round he's still very far from a finished article. I talked about how well Hudson-Odoi looks after the ball. Quite honestly, apart from when he was in his rich vein of form, some supporters were actually on Elanga's back, weren't they? Not being able to see what he can do, more what he can't do. And one thing we do know, he's a specimen. So I'll be amazed if he doesn't pass his medical. That's for sure. He's a very, very good player with even more to give. He works so hard on his weaker foot. He was trying almost too hard early in the season to be more involved in the game, coming inside because he wanted to be almost like that wide midfielder. But he's learning the game still. He's still only 23. I think it's a good deal for both parties in some ways, but it's one of those questions you can't really answer for sure until we're a year down the line, where he's got to displace a lad who got more goals and more assists than him last season, for instance, and who's still only 31, got another year in him maybe. He's got to stay fit, which he hasn't always done. He's got to deal with being in I hate saying this because we're massive, but deal with the pressure of being in that type of Man United type atmosphere again, where there's ridiculous expectations, which Man United fans say he didn't deal with that. Oh, that's ridiculous because he was 21 when we signed him, so he'd not had a chance to really establish himself. All round, I think it's a decent deal if we sign the right players and they impact. It's no good going out and getting I hate to say it, a Sosa who doesn't impact the first team very much, that type of thing, and we end up selling them for a couple of million profit a year later. So time will tell.
Just want to touch on his style of play. We've talked about how explosive he is, and a really good example of that was Ipswich away when he used that pace to his advantage and scored a couple of tremendous goals. Do you think, Kate, that means Nuno will need to change the club's style of play in terms of not relying on the counter-attack perhaps as much as they used to last season, bearing in mind towards the end of the season teams seem to have sussed us out a little bit and pretty much put a stop to that counter-attack? Do you think the team will need to adapt their style of play to account for his loss?
Not necessarily directly because of Elanga's loss. The job that he does, he's very good at, and we really enjoyed watching him. But he is replaceable. You can get somebody else that's explosive and has pace and can score some goals and get some assists. You should be able to get somebody else to play in the Premier League for that. I think we're talking about a different player who may or may not be staying when we talk about whether or not we completely change the way that we play. And I'm just not sure that that's Elanga.
So talking of replacements, latest reports have John Percy of the Telegraph reporting that Johan Bakayoko from PSV is currently in discussions with the club about signing, as are a number of other reports floating out there on social media. I don't know too much about him personally, but I've seen a couple of clips on X to suggest that he's quite explosive and pacey, so it looks like they may be looking for a similar type of player to Elanga. Do either of you know much about Bakayoko and care to comment on that?
Only that he plays in the Dutch league, where I think even I could look fast, so I'm always a bit dubious until I actually see them play. It's not, I think I've mentioned this some time ago, not many players come direct from the Dutch league and have a huge impact. The ones traditionally that have come from Italy or Spain, having come from Dutch football originally. So, but if he's quick, and we know Nuno can work with him, the last 2 years acquisitions have been very, very good. So I wrote down before the show, I must say the phrase, I trust in the process, if I'm being honest.
I've seen you play Mollo, and Mollo and quick do not go along in the same sentence together. But in all seriousness, I've seen your face, Mollo. It's a picture. Do you think Igor Jesus has a role to play in there in replacing Elanga directly? I know we mentioned it earlier. Is he too much of an attacking player to directly replace Elanga, do you think, Kate?
Yeah. I hope he's too much of an attacking player to directly replace Elanga. I know what you're saying, and it's absolutely valid. You know, they're all forward players, so yes, there is an argument for that. But no, I think Elanga needs replacing properly. So, not somebody that might be able to do a bit of this and might be able to do a bit of that. Like, let's get ourselves a nice, good, fast, exciting winger.
Yeah, and for those that are interested, I know the Forest Focus podcast have released an episode that purely focuses on potential replacement. So I encourage everybody to go and check out that podcast if you haven't already. Go on, Mollo.
Did they mention Josh Bowler as a potential replacement?
I thought for one moment you were going to suggest yourself, Mollo.
No, my pace has gone, unfortunately.
Was it even already there, is the question I have to ask. Sorry.
Up to 20 years ago.
Yeah. One other player who's departed is, of course, Tyler Binnon, who's gone on loan to Sheffield United. I think that's absolutely the right move for his development. He's going from League One to arguably the top of the Championship. And I think it's really important to see what he's got, what he's made of, to see if he's able to take that step up. Now, the question I pose to you guys, do you think it's the right move for him? I think you're both nodding, so you agree. But do you think he's going to be ready for the first team in a year from now, Mollo, or do you think it's going to be even longer than that?
Very interesting, because I've heard so many good things about him from people that have watched him play. I can't claim to have seen anything of him, so it's difficult. The only down thing for me is, why did it have to be them? Because now I want them to be pushing at the top end, so I see him being this superb Baresi, Morello-esque centre-half in a championship, dominating, etc., etc. I'd much rather it was like Coventry or someone, but if it's got to be them, then it is, and it is. You're absolutely right. It should be the top end of the Championship. What I'd hate to see is that he goes there and he struggles to establish himself in their side, even though he's still very young, because if he's as good as I'm led to believe he could be, a year there, and then he could be that fourth centre half for us, challenging the next two, and looking to replace one of them in time, or if Murillo becomes the big. So it just depends how it pans out. But it's a really good natural progression, isn't it? From being the best player in League One, best player in League Two, in the Championship, and then let's see what follows. Hopefully, that's the plan.
Yeah, and talking of the plan, long term, Kate, I can see him potentially going to be, if Mollo says, and he does turn out to be the player we all hope he is going to be, maybe he's going to be the long-term centre-back alongside Zach Abbott, looking further into the future, because obviously Milenkovic is, late 20s. Murillo could potentially be an asset that would need to depart in the future to comply with PSR. So maybe they've got their succession plan already in place, where you're looking at a long-term pairing of Bindon and Abbott.
Yeah, why not? Sounds good, doesn't it? And I mean, let's be honest, there are worse places in the Championship he could have gone, right?
Only one.
I mean, we did say near the top of the Championship, so I suppose looking at it like that, then so maybe not. But yeah, I mean, like you, Mollo, I haven't seen a great deal of him, but all the things that I've heard have been really, really positive. And I think the fact that we're having the conversation of, should we have sent him on loan, or should we have given him a few minutes and developed him, as part of the squad, is testament to that. He's exciting. He's still our player. Okay, so I think let's all keep a bit more of an eye on him and his season in the Championship, and see what we think. But potentially, yeah, from everything that I've heard and from the way that they are managing him, taking him, on loan from League One up to the Championship, the obvious next step would be the Premier League. And if that's going to happen, it's going to happen in a Forest shirt.
Just wanted to go back to something you touched on, Mollo, around any potential strikers that Forest might look to sign to support those already in the squad. It seems to me that if they did that, it would be very much a similar thing to what they're doing with the centre halves, in terms of creating that succession plan for ultimately when Chris Wood hangs up his boots, whenever that may be, and establishing that pathway of younger players to naturally progress into that first team picture.
Absolutely. And I think we do have to acknowledge as well that progression planning hasn't been, this player could be that guy to step up, because we've gone through Omar Deli. Obviously, we've got the brain's gone. The Brazilian centre half, who's Morato, of course. Yeah, coming. It's not been instant. The first young centre half we signed was going to be the business, because Bamadelli was a good player, but the level we're at now, he wasn't quite good enough, or deemed to be quite good enough for what we want. Hopefully this young lad is. The thing is, he's so young as well. I did have the pleasure of Reading fans absolutely rave about him and say he is going to be the next big thing as a centre half. He's got Premier League written all over him. And I know Reading fans aren't necessarily the best judges, but very exciting. If we could do that and find a striker that can do a similar thing and go into the Championship and score a bundle of goals, because it has been shown, hasn't it? If you can score lots of goals in the Championship consistently, you can usually step up as a player, not as a team necessarily, and do the job there. That chap from Coventry, Guy Hawkins or whatever, he's costing about 70 million now, isn't it, or something daft? So I like the way we're looking. We're planning ahead. We're like a pound shop version of Chelsea in that respect, but I don't mean that to sound disrespectful. We're going out and finding relatively unknowns. They're going out and signing £100 million talents that everyone knows about that just happen to be under 21.
Yeah, just a quick word on Zach Abbott, Kate. We touched on him just now. Where do you see his future in terms of establishing himself as I know he's already in the first team squad, but he's got to be at some point looking to increase his playing time. And obviously it's difficult at the moment with the pairing they've got on there. Now, would you send him out on loan to get that more experience now, or do you see him more of an established member of the first team, bearing in mind they need to have a certain quota of homegrown players for the Europa Conference League they're in next season? What would you do with Zach Abbott at this stage of his career, Kate?
I think you've just kind of answered the question in the asking there. I think we've got enough fixtures coming up. We've got Europa, we've got the 2 normal domestic cups. There's enough time to give Zach Abbott some minutes on the pitch. And I do think he needs that because, yes, I think he's very promising. But he does have a way to go. Like I would be worried if we were starting him, come August. So there is definitely more development to do, but I do think he's of a standard where we can do that here, and we should do that here.
Can I be controversial and say the exact opposite?
Oh.
I think only from a perspective, particularly as a centre half, because I know he played right back, but he's really a centre half. Having watched him quite closely for the under-19s in that tournament, to me, he's really tidy on the ball. He's got a bit of everything, but I think he needs to play week in, week out somewhere. And I genuinely don't think it even needs to be the Championship. It could be League One. He needs those big, horrible centre forwards roughing him up, coming in for the head in, because he was really good in the air in that under-19s. But did you see how many goals they conceded? It's like a bit worrying in that respect. I think he's got a really promising future, and he is ridiculously young still, isn't he? He seems like he's been around forever, because he was about 9 or something when he was in the under-18, so to speak. Do you remember when he played in that FA Youth Cup final? He was still at school, and when he could have a really big future. What I've noticed between when he made his debut for Newcastle to when we next saw him at Man City, he looked like he'd grown about a foot and filled out as well. So he's physically developing. And I think now that he's got that physicality, if they think it's appropriate in terms of home life and whatnot, because that's a big thing, isn't it? They need to send him out to a league club where he'll get regular game time and learn that side of the game, really, because it's so different to academy football.
Yeah, do you not think that we need him though? No. You don't?
No. There's a lot of talk about. If we need him, we should have kept Bindon. If we need him, shouldn't we? If he's following my drift, because Bindon's a step ahead of him at the moment, and if we need, and I'll say, you never know. If we get 3 injuries, we might. But how many minutes did he play last season in competitive football? And when he played, he rarely let us down. He looked solid. I thought against Newcastle at the start of the season, if I'm being honest, he looked like an academy player stepping into the first team. Bearing in mind, Newcastle put out a full first team, to be fair. By the end of the season, he did a job at right back, and he looked a bigger, different kind of athlete. But there were times when the ball was on and they weren't passing the ball out to him in that first half. It was kind of big, is he ready yet? Mm-hmm. You can't beat playing. You can train all day, you can play for the academy teams, you can do all that, but you learn the game by playing, learn your trade in it. And I think playing the occasional game here and there, in whether it be Conference League. Obviously, I would imagine he'll start every single cup match next season that's not European. But that could be 3 games, potentially 3 or 4 games max. He needs the season of playing 30 games week in, week out, getting bashed about a bit, having to look after himself. That experience will bring him on so much because he's clearly a talent, a real talent.
Right, we're going to pause there and we'll be back in a moment.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Visit USAA.com/bundle.
Bundle savings are off total premium, not available in all states or in all situations. To qualify, auto policy must be active prior to property policy issue, subject to change. Restrictions apply. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Using a Clorox disinfecting wipe to clean that stuck-on sauce from the stove feels like...
Oh, boy. That tickles. Stop.
It feels like coming home to your needy corgi after a long day.
Best part of the day, finally.
With Clorox, clean feels carefree. Clean feels good. Use as directed.
Right, one last thing on Zach Abbott. I don't know whether you guys realise the importance he plays at the moment in terms of
I was going to say that
squad. With when Ryan Yates gets suspended, he's the one that he's the one that steps in and maintains that proud record of having a youth homegrown player in the squad, or for God knows how many years now that is. So that is he's played a really important part of the role, and obviously if he does go out on loan or whatever, then they're going to need to find somebody else to fulfill that next season, because ultimately at some point, Ryan Yates will probably, in all likelihood, get suspended or injured.
Is that a reason? I know. I agree with you. It's a proud thing, because I ended up in a bit of a debate with a Man United fan who was going on about, we're the only club in the Premier League who's had a first team player in our squad, matchday squad, for the last 80 years. I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. I think you'll find we have as well. But is that a reason? It's a bit like when we were the oldest club in the Football League. Is that the right reason? And I'm not saying... for Zach Abbott, it's definitely not the right reason, because he needs to play.
Yeah.
But I do understand why we do it. And it's...
Yeah.
I am proud of that as well.
You're right. For Zach Abbott as an individual and as a player, it's probably not. But as a football club, to demonstrate to potential young players they want to recruit into the club, you can present this stat to them and say, look, there's evidence of a pathway into the first team that's been there for so long now. And it would be a shame to have that proud record relinquished for the sake of one player's development. But I understand the bigger picture here. It is a tricky one, isn't it, Kate? Where do you stand on that?
So I think that, we have sent Bindon out on loan. We do have this academy player who is very, very promising. I still think he's in the right place. I think he is a great example of that, of how our academy players can come through. I think having Ryan Yates is brilliant. I love him. I never ever want him to leave. But yeah, Zach Abbott could potentially take up that mantle. And I do think there is something in that. And I hear what you're saying about, how he is as an individual and as a player. And I hear all of that. But this is still a little bit about who Forest are and why we love them and the things that we take pride in. And I love that we have Zach Abbott. I love that he is the next one coming through. I loved it when he came on at Wembley, and all the pictures that you got afterwards of him sat with his dad in the crowd at the playoffs and then coming on the pitch. I mean, okay, so maybe I'm being a little bit romantic about it and a little bit less, I don't know, football, but I love that. I love it.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. Right, we are going to move on to the long-awaited Ola Aina quiz. Now, if you remember from last week, we do have a maximum of 5 minutes to complete 10 questions. I think we did pretty well last week, Kate. Chelsea and Mollo between them got 8 out of 10 on Neco Williams. So let's try and better that, shall we? Are you guys ready?
I'm doing revision.
Just to confirm, we haven't seen any of the questions, nor do we know any of the answers. So let's go with question 1. From which side did Ola Aina join Forest from?
Torino.
The options were Hull, Chelsea, Fulham and Torino. Correct?
Yeah, he was on loan, I think, at Fulham, but is that right? But yeah, from Torino.
Question 2. Against which Premier League side did Forest first keep a clean sheet with Ola in the starting 11? And the options are Newcastle, Villa, Chelsea, Man United.
Chelsea? I want to say Chelsea.
I think you might be right when we beat them 1-0.
Yes,
in
correct.
honour of her absence, I feel like we should go with Chelsea. Yeah, come on,
Chelsea's
point,
correct. Number 3, as of the end of the 2024-25 campaign, how many appearances has Ola Aina made for the Reds? And the answer is either 62, 50, 59, 55.
I think it's quite high because he's almost played 2 solid seasons, hasn't he? And he's either left back or right back. A few injuries, late 50s.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Are we going to 59 or 55?
I'd go 59, I think, rather than 55.
I would, just because when we won the FA Cup.
59. Yeah. Question
Well
4.
done.
As of the end of the 2024-25 campaign, how many goals has Ola scored for Forest? 5, 2, 3 or 1?
It's either...
I can remember 2. Brentford and West Ham.
West Ham's the one that I can remember, yeah.
I can't remember any others. 5, 2, 3 and 1.
And is that overall or just last season?
Overall.
So we definitely know it was 2 last season, which probably means...
What are we going for, 2 or 3?
I think that means we go 3.
All right, let's 3.
I
Correct.
think it's 2. Oh,
3.
phew.
Right, question 5.
What was it?
How? 3.
Oh, we got Harry, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many of Ola's goals have come at the City Ground since he joined the club? And the options are 2, 3, 1, 0.
Well, definitely 1 because of West Ham.
I think 2, because didn't he score at the Bridgeford end as well? It was a long-range effort from out the area.
Yes, against Villa.
So
Yeah.
2. Question 6. How many minutes in the Premier League did Ola accumulate for Forest in 24-25? And the options are 3,000, 2,998, 3,002 or 2,995.
Wow, they're really close together.
That's not my thing. Over to you, boys, over to you.
And I remember
it was around 3,000.
Yeah, I remember hearing something on Forest Focus around players that had played a significant number of minutes because they were talking about how tired they were, and I'm pretty sure they said he'd played more than 3,000, so I'm going to go for 3,002.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Wow.
Question 7. In how many Premier League fixtures did Ola complete the full 90 minutes in 2024-25? Now, he missed a few at the end, didn't he? I don't remember him missing too many others.
No, he sometimes got taken off and they brought Neco on when Neco was on the bench for a while.
What, last season?
Yeah. When we had that Villa lad, Neco came off to finish the game. Not many, though. It was always right near the end.
So it's either then probably going to be 30 or 35, isn't it?
30.
Correct. No, it's 28.
I don't remember even 28 was an option.
Yeah.
I thought you were 30 or 35. Oh.
Right. Question 8, and we have a minute left. How many assists has Ola registered in Forest colours? And the numbers are 4, 1, 0 or 2.
I can remember 1, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I'd be tempted to go 1.
Correct. 1 it is.
Ah!
Right, question 9. We've got 40 seconds. And what date did Ola sign for Forest? July 23, July 15, July 10th, or July the 7th?
I know this.
Kate.
I know this. This is because it was on my mate's birthday, and her birthday is the 23rd of July.
Correct.
Wow.
Right.
I know,
We
we
keep
were out
getting lucky with
drinking.
these birthdays.
Question 10, last 20 seconds. Against which team did Ola first appear at right back for Forest in 24-25? Brighton and Hove Albion, Fulham, Chelsea, or Liverpool?
Liverpool.
10 seconds.
Liverpool.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we got
Well
9
done.
out of 10. So we actually beat the
Wow.
Neco Williams score of 10.
Oh,
That's the
brilliant.
Birthdays that did it again.
Yeah. Right, good stuff. So can we expect a Callum Hudson-Odoi quiz if he puts pen to paper on a new contract, do you think? Because they're certainly milking these re-signings, aren't they?
I'm all for it. The more quizzes they put out there, the more players we've signed, so I'm all for that.
Right. We're coming to the end of the episode now. Mollo, just quickly talk about your experience and the tournament that the Garibaldi Girls played in last weekend in aid of a very worthwhile cause.
Yeah, no, it was a tremendous cause for men's health and the Will Garvey Foundation. So I was going along to watch, but then got the call on, I think, the Tuesday, Wednesday. Said, well, Dad, I think you might need to bring your trainers. I no longer own a decent pair of boots. Then my other son, who's 20, got dragged in because at one point they had 4 players. Then we got it up to 6. Then we got up to 7. We turned up. A couple of teams had dropped out, so we only ended up having 4 matches. And it was on a very big pitch as far as I'm concerned. And it was a lot of fun. The first game against a team that the average age looked to be about 22. Myself at the age of the wrong side of, let's say, 40-ish and a bit. And one of the Garibaldi girls, Natalie, who, total coincidence, I had no idea she was playing, but used to live in West Hallam, Simon, played. She's actually slightly younger than me by about 10 days. She scored what put us in the lead, so we thought we were going to win that game, but we drew. I was off the pitch by the time we conceded, I hasten to add. Then we won our second game, drew our third, and we had to, in the last game, we needed to win by 6 goals to win the tournament against, without being disrespectful, a team that were more my age than the first team. And we won 7-0. I even managed to score I even scored a left-footed goal. But I played mostly at the back. And I'm just going to put it out there. But it's not the running that necessarily matters that much, although I did try to run occasionally. We conceded 1 goal all day whilst I was on the pitch. And that was because our keeper, who played superbly generally, decided to wander halfway up the pitch and someone lobbed him. So experience still matters, but we did have a fantastic... We had the Golden Boot winner, which helped quite a lot as well. And Ellie scored an absolute drama, smashed it in at the near post in one of the games. So really good fun, but most importantly for a really, really good cause. And another freakish coincidence, unbeknown to me when I turned up, I ended up playing against my brother-in-law and my niece, would you believe, who plays for or has recently played for Burton Albion before she went off to university. And he's like 19, so... It was fun, but I still can't walk, and it's now, Tuesday?
Yeah, excellent stuff. Good stuff, Adam. We'll like to hear more about that in a year's time if you look to do a repeat.
I definitely want to be just the manager. I've started recruiting now, so I don't have to run around. And I really enjoyed it, but it's made me realise walking football sounds a lot of fun at my age.
Yeah. Right, coming to the end of the show now. Kate, any other business, anything you want to bring up before we draw the episode to a close?
No, not really. Just thanks again for having me. I've had a really lovely time. I love talking about Forest. So, hopefully I'll see you guys again.
Yeah, we'll have you on again in the not too distant future, I'm sure. Mollo, anything from you?
No, just watch this space. I think we might have a few more Cloughie stories coming our way fairly soon, it's looking like.
Awesome. We'll look a nice little teaser there. For everyone else, thanks again for listening, guys. We really do appreciate your support, and if you could leave us a 5-star rating and review to help us reach more Forest fans, that would be awesome. But that's it. In the meantime, we shall speak to you again real soon.
Podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.